Well, welcome to our garden. Come on in, we'll show you around. These are our blueberry plants. We have some over here and some on the other side. They're 2 years old and they're just starting to grow a little bit now. Down here we planted 6 thornless blackberries and they have really taken off. And as you can see, the blackberries are large and delicious. Over here, if you look down this row, you can see we've started, last year we planted a variety of apple trees, which we're going to do espalier, which means we train them to grow sideways on wires, so they're sort of two-dimensional, and that allows a lot of air in for the fruit, so it can develop better. Here we have our Roma tomatoes. We decided to use cages this year, and that seems to be working out really well. They're larger and they're fairly prolific, and if you peek beneath the leaves there, you can see there are still some ripe ones coming in. Our zucchini, we lost one plant, but the other one's coming along, and we have had quite a bit of zucchini from them. Over here, our slow bolt lettuce has finally bolted. It's August. It's still good to eat. Surprisingly, it doesn't get bitter, and we're letting it go to seed because it's an heirloom plant, and that way we can replant it. We have chard down the end there, which is a lot like spinach, except that it's got a much longer growing season. Prior to that, we did have some arugula and some spinach planted, but that's been harvested long ago. We planted our potatoes, a lot of them, in round wire bins filled with straw, and they seem to be doing fairly well. We don't use any pesticides, so we picked off the potato bugs that we had end of June, beginning of July by hand and got rid of them, and the plants seem to be thriving. At the end of the garden, you can see we have popcorn planted in the front, a little bit shorter, and in the back there's some what's known as bloody butcher corn for grinding. It's a red corn. It could be used as a decorative corn as well. If you follow me over here to this box, we've got soybeans planted here. I've already picked most of them, but as you can see, the plants are still full of beans, and that's my job for today, is to start picking them off. When they're green, they're called edamame. We like them to use like baby lima beans, but they're really good. Back here, our asparagus is doing well. We have 2 boxes, one on each end, and the asparagus can't be cut for the first 3 years. This is its 2nd year, and it just looks so good in the spring when it comes up. So we're really, really looking forward to next spring when we can start to pick some. This is some of our sweet corn here. It's Texas Honey June variety. It's the first year we've tried it. It's coming along. It's really tall. We're not sure why. But the ears are starting to develop now. Our string beans didn't do so well this year. They're also an heirloom variety, Empress green beans. And last year and the year before we had so many that we still have some left frozen from the previous 2 years to eat. So this year we didn't plant as many, but we had difficulty getting them to germinate, and we're not sure why. Another adventure in gardening, but these bushes are doing very well. I probably pick about between a pint and a quart of beans every day from them. Our carrot plants that were in here from last year have gone to seed, and I'll gather those seed heads and then we'll use them to plant this fall. The carrots seem to do well when you plant them in the fall, and they come up much earlier in the spring, and you get an earlier harvest. In here we've got squash growing on our fences, butternut squash. And back here at the back of the garden there are strawberry towers, one on each end, and the beginnings of a grape arbor here. We still have to build our regular arbor, but we need to do something to get the grapes up off the ground. There are regular Concord grapes in the back and seedless Concord grapes up front. The ones in the back are 2 years old, the ones in the front were in last year. The garden is in desperate need of someone to weed it, which is another job I've got to do today. But we've got two kinds of parsley, basil. This large flowering one here is bronze fennel. There's some oregano, there's some dill hiding back there, a little rosemary plant, chocolate mint, regular mint, some horseradish, and some lemon balm. Over here is our cantaloupe patch, and the cantaloupes that we're growing are getting there slowly. They're called Petit Gris. They're kind of a grayish color rather than the tan when they're done. They start out dark brown and they gradually turn to a yellowish color. Very little webbing on them. Absolutely delicious. You can eat them down to about 1/8 of an inch to the rind. In between the cantaloupe we have something we tried this year that's new. It's a salsify plant. It looks like grass on top. Sort of looks like a white carrot when it's done, and its nickname is oyster plant. We've heard about it but never had it to eat, so we thought we'd give it a try, see what it tastes like. This is bronze arrowhead lettuce that's going to seed. It's another heirloom variety. Sort of looks like oak leaves with a little bit of brown on them. The seeds come up every year. As you can see, it's starting to get ready to flower now that it's bolted, and I'll save the seeds from that for the following year to plant next spring. There's more horseradish in the center. A few potato plants. They're about done, which means they're ready to dig up. Over here's our sweet potato patch. This box has about 18 sweet potato plants in it, and last year we got 75 pounds from one box, so we're hoping to do as well this year. In the background over here you can see our red raspberry plants. They did very, very well this year. This is only the second year for them as well. These are French climbing red beans. The flowers are very pretty. Instead of white, they're sort of a very delicate pinkish purple color. And it's a pole bean, and it's a very, very good variety. It's also an older variety. It's been around since early 1900s. Underneath our trellises on both ends we have rhubarb planted. This is a new plant this year. The one on the other end came from Dennis's Uncle John's and transplanted very well. These are called Gita beans. I don't see any super long ones to show you. They grow 18 to 36 inches long, the beans on them. They have a very pretty purple flower also, and I just picked them before we filmed this, so we've got a lot of them inside. But they're starting this probably by tomorrow. These will be another 5-6 inches longer and ready to pick. We also have espalier trees on this end. We've got a multi-variety of apples on this one in the center. Down here are peaches. This is a peach tree also, which has already been picked. This is a volunteer tomato bush. Came up from last year, and it's getting tomatoes on it. Here we have more soybeans. When we planted them this year, they didn't all come up at the same rate or as well, and we had to replant some. So these darker ones have already been picked, but the lighter leaf ones down here are just about ready to pick now. Over here we've got two espaliered cherry trees, the pie cherries, the tart ones. And on the end we had two apricot trees. We lost one, so we need to replace it because they need each other to pollinate and to produce fruit. There's more asparagus down the end. Back in here we had our wheat patch, which we've harvested. You can see the remainder of some of the stalks on the ground. And we've produced about 35 pounds of wheat in here. Of wheat berries, which we'll grind to make flour and make whole wheat bread. I like to dress up the garden a little bit. Back in the corner is a knockout rose bush that my daughter Pam and her husband Tom gave us a couple years ago. This zucchini plant gave us 4 big zucchini yesterday, and I see it's got a couple little ones on here. I'll let them go tomorrow. But it continues to bloom and to grow. There's a little one down in there now. I just picked our onions this morning and pulled them. And they're a nice size. I'll let them dry for about a week, and then they'll be ready to take in for the winter. This is a new tomato we tried this year. It's also an heirloom variety. It's called the Mortgage Lifter, and it's really outdoing itself. I just picked 4 big ripe tomatoes off of it this morning, and it looks like by tomorrow there'll be 4 more to pick. Maybe 5.